McIntyre.
Here.
Peter.
Here.
DeCook.
Here, we do have a quorum. Are there any agenda deletions, corrections? Seeing none, the first item on our agenda today is the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda will be enacted by one motion. Claims figure of $449,776.22. B, fringes in the amount of $140.26. C, rescind approval of 2/8/2022 special meeting minutes. D, approve revised 2/8/2022 special meeting minutes. E, minutes to approve February 15, 2022 board meeting, February 22, 2022 special meeting. F, approve employee payroll removal, Christopher Brooklander, Secondary Roads Department, effective February 11, 2022. G, approve employee payroll removal, Thomas Perkenberger, Secondary Roads Department, effective March 4, 2022. H, approve employee payroll removal, Scott Wilson, Secondary Roads Department, effective March 3, 2022. I, job classification change, Robbie Inquist, Road Superintendent, Secondary Roads Department, effective March 7, 2022. J, approve 6-month pay increase, Mickey Gizzy, Real Estate Clerk, Governor's Office, effective February 28, 2022. K, approve new hire, Katie LaPalette, Clerk, Recorder's Office, effective February 28, 2022. L, approve DCAP fiscal year 23 contract renewals. M, approve Class B beer permit, Shady Oaks Golf Course. N, set public hearing date of March 15, 2022 at 6:05 PM regarding a proposed amendment to the 2021 Warren County, Iowa revised zoning and subdivision ordinances. And O, approve Crystal McIntyre as the policy committee primary representative and Darren Heater as the policy committee alternative representative of the Des Moines Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, Friends MPO. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Number 2 on our agenda is a public hearing to start at 9:30.
I'll make a motion to go to public hearing.
Second? That's great. Is there any discussion? Other than the fact that our consent agenda was also at 9:30, but hey, I like that. That means we don't have to wait a couple minutes. Roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye. We are in public hearing. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so per the code, we're required to post our tax levy amounts that we are planning to collect for fiscal year 23. And per the notice, what we're looking to collect is 13 million on the general, so this includes general basic and general supplemental. It's $13,408,601, which does represent a 3.59% increase over the tax dollars collected for this fiscal year that we're in currently. And then for rural services, which is our rural basic, it is $1,843,756, which is actually an 18.95% decrease of tax dollars that we collected last year. So just in comparison, we do have a 1 cent decrease on the general supplemental. Our general basic rate is remaining the same at 3.5. And then on the rural basic tax rate, there's a 43-cent increase to put that tax rate at 1.67662. So again, per the code, we are required to post this, let the public know, and open it for any of their commentary, or if you guys have any questions.
I don't, Megan, but would you like
And the mental health levy is not included in, this notice, but the mental health levy is actually being eliminated, so, on the county taxes, that will be a 39-cent, decrease, because that is no longer going to be taxed by the county, be included in the state.
Thank you, and then lastly, could you speak to the debt levy of Warren County?
So our debt levy is actually going down 8 cents. Again, these two are not included in the, notice, but our debt levy is set to be at 0.98733, and last year is about 1.06.
Thank you, and I agree that on the notice, but it's important for folks to understand that that's from whence the reduction's coming. Okay, we are in, public hearing. Is there anyone online or in the room that would like to comment? Comments will be limited to 3 minutes on the proposed property tax levy. Seeing no one in the room is commenting, is there anyone online? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second. Roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye.
You want us to read the
The resolution for this.
If you want, I can read the resolution. Whereas the Warren County Board of Supervisors has considered the proposed fiscal year 2023 county maximum property tax dollars for the affected levy total, and whereas a notice concerning the proposed county maximum property tax dollars was published as required and posted on the county website and or social media accounts if applicable, whereas a public hearing concerning the proposed county maximum property tax levy was held on March 1st, 2022, now therefore be it resolved by the Warren County Board of Supervisors that the maximum property tax dollars for the effective tax levies for fiscal year 2023 shall not exceed the following total: general services, $13,408,601; rural services, $1,843,756. The maximum property tax dollars requested in the total maximum levy for the effective property tax levies for fiscal year 2023 does represent an increase of greater than 102% from the maximum property tax dollars for general services requested in fiscal year 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving right along, we've got, number 4 on the agenda is set public hearing date of March 29, 2022 at 10 a.m. for fiscal year 23 public budget hearing and possible action. Do we have a motion to set that public hearing date?
Sure, I'll make a motion to set the public hearing date as outlined.
Second. Discussion, roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye, motion carries. Alright, number 5 on the agenda is public hearing for 223rd Avenue Road vacation. I'll make a motion to go into public hearing.
Second.
Roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye. Good morning, David.
Morning. So we've been working with the Iowa DNR on this particular section of roadway. I did tell the Iowa DNR representative he didn't need to attend this meeting. They're the only landowner, so I don't wanna waste his time. But it's currently hunting ground and a level C road, and they just wanna vacate further, to be able to maintain the road themselves. Since it is all basically hunting ground with the Iowa DNR. We previously vacated the road further south of there, as well as the bridge, and this is just another 3/4 mile section. So our department would recommend waiving the second and third reading on this because we don't see it being contentious whatsoever. And then approving that 3/4 mile section of roadway to be vacated to the Iowa Department of Natural Resources.
Thank you. We are in a public hearing. Is there anyone in the room or online who would like to comment on the 3/4 mile vacation of that portion of 223rd Avenue? Still no online? Okay. It doesn't appear as anyone has any public comments on it. I'll make a motion to end our public hearing.
Second.
Roll call please.
McIntyre?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
DeCook?
Aye. Discussion from the board or question for David? Dean, just out of curiosity, whole, it looks like there's, 120-ish acres. DNR owns all of it.
Yeah, they own the, I don't know if you have this map. So they own that area on the,
In the red?
yeah, in the red box, that area.
And the farmer or landowner who owns the portion that we're vacating is agreeable?
Yeah, I think if there is farm ground back there, it's rented, so they're not technically the landowner. It's rented from the DNR, but that north section, that 1/4 mile is still gonna be essentially a 1/4 mile dead end road after this is vacated if it's
And they
approved.
still have access from Alcorn on there, so.
Yeah, it's still gonna be an access that they maintain. I think I believe there's funding for them to add rock to roads and things, just like we got funding with some of these new bills, so if it's vacated, they're just gonna use those funds to maintain it for access for hunting, so.
Sounds like a win for the county.
Yes, anytime.
Less for us to maintain, and if the DNR wants to bring their own rock and maintain the roads, tell them there's another 500 or 600 miles that will entertain as well. So, I don't have any more questions.
Great.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to, accept the resolution to vacate the county road as described.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
McIntyre?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
DeCook?
Aye. Motion carries, thank you much.
Do you want to waive the second and third reading on it as well? Sorry to,
I'll make a motion to waive the second and third reading as well.
Let's add that to it,
Do
second.
it, yeah.
thank you.
Good catch.
Yeah, very good.
And a second, I'll second it, and just vote on that as well. Roll call please.
McIntyre?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
DeCook?
Aye, and the friendly amendment passes. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I have 9:44. We are on, item number 6, which is second reading regarding a rezoning from A1 to C2 for land located at 4248 R57 Highway, Norwalk, Iowa, 50211, owned by Sean Westrom. And do we need to go to a public hearing for that? We do. I'll make a motion to go into public hearing.
Second.
Roll call please.
McIntyre?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
DeCook?
Aye, we are in public hearing.
Good morning. Lindsay's without a little bit of a voice this morning, so I'll be her voice, hopefully. So, yes, we're in a second reading today. The first reading was held February 15th. A motion was made to approve and there was a second, but then you asked to go into a second reading, so here we are. I know Sean Westrom is here to present additional information today. But we also, this morning received from him a document, and then, Crystal apparently received an email as well that we didn't receive, so copies have been made. Would you like copies of those, or do you want me to read them into record?
Please read them into the record.
Okay. So I'll read what Crystal received first. This is an email, sent last night to Crystal, Darren, and Aaron. Says, it's from Don Campbell. Good evening. I wanted to again express my opposition to the rezoning of 4248 R57 Highway to commercial. I live just 2 doors down from this property. I purchased my land and built my house where I did because I did not want to be in town or next to commercial properties. I wanted rural living, and that's what we have at this point. It has come to my attention that Mr. Westrom has stated that he has spoken to all the neighbors and that we are not in opposition to this anymore. This is completely untrue. I have never spoken to Mr. Westrom, and I am still 100% opposed to this. Also, I've heard that an assumption was made by the board that since none of us were in attendance at the last meeting that we are no longer opposed. This is also untrue. Some of the neighbors attended the first meeting and you tabled the discussion to another date. The meeting has been moved several times and has been held on multiple dates. We can't be expected to come to every meeting. We have made you aware we are opposed, and this hasn't changed. Finally, I've heard that some of you are in support of the rezoning because you will be able to tax the western property more as a commercial property. My property assessments have continued to rise, thus so have my taxes. Commercial property near me will decrease the value of my property and the others around it. Therefore, you will lose property taxes instead of increase them. If a commercial property is allowed in the neighborhood, then I would expect my property assessment and taxes to decrease. Please strongly consider our opposition to this and vote no. Thank you. Thanks for your time, Don Campbell, 43387 R57 Highway, Norwalk, Iowa. And then what Sean submitted to us this morning is addressed to you as the Board of Supervisors. The board will have a second reading on rezoning of 4248 R57 Highway, Norwalk 50211 on March 1st. And basically this is something he took to some of the neighbors to have signatures, and I have copies for you if you'd like. Basically he outlined the restrictions that were proposed in the last meeting, and he added another one. It says, so this is to the neighbors that were signing it. I support a rezoning of this property to C2 so long as the following restrictions are put into place. 1, this property is restricted to internet auto sales only. Sean may not engage in traditional car sales tactics. Sean will not have for sale signs on vehicles, have customers on his property browsing inventory, or anything to attract customer attention to the property. 2, any business Sean conducts will have to be conducted within his 42/80 existing building. All inventory vehicles will be secured inside this building. No inventory vehicles shall be displayed or stored outside on the property at 4248 R57. 3, should Sean sell his property, the C2 zoning will be sunsetted and will not be transferred to the new landowner. 4, no signage will be permitted by the street. The only signage will be fixed to the walk-in door of the 42/80 building. 5, no additional outdoor lighting will be added to the property. 6, this is the one Sean added himself. It says Sean will not operate a dyno machine on his property. And then there's neighbors at 4212 R57 Highway that signed, the Todd and Nicole Shute, and some of the, the neighbor at 4175 R57 Highway, 4248 R57 Highway, there's 2 of those, and then 5027 R57 Highway, both of them. So, and then this morning also Sean brought in more pictures from giving a view of the driveway situation that he shares with the Baldwins. I think he'll want to come forward and explain those better to you, but would you like to have those now to look at, or, okay, let me pass this. And did you want copies of Sean's,
Yeah, I just have a
both?
question for Sean. Let me get that.
Okay, so that's where we are now in the second hearing. Anything else for us right now? Questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Good morning. I'm Sean, the applicant at 4248 North 57. Would you guys like me to go back through the whole internet auto sales thing, or just address some of the new stuff? For one of the pictures, I guess, while you guys are looking at it, the approach is shared, but if you'll notice, I put my 2 cars that I drive on a daily basis out there on my side, and you can see that there's still room to pull through. We both maintain our own sides of it. You can actually tell that I use crushed asphalt on my side, and Baldwin's side is rock. And I do a lot to keep that up. I use the crushed asphalt, so there's not as much dust on that. But I would say that it's not really a shared driveway per se. Like, it's not what you would think of when that term is used, I guess. Try to take pictures to explain that, because there's not really a better way to explain it than just seeing it for yourself. For one thing, to address that letter, I don't believe that I said that I spoke to all the neighbors, and I'll tell you straight up on my letter that I only went to neighbors that I'm familiar with and talked to. I don't think that that's appropriate for my first introduction to people around my area. Is, hey, will you guys please sign this letter or whatever, you know. The people that know me, and they support this and know that I'll take care of everything, so. Just of it, nothing's changed either. I'm still here, just, I've been dealing with 30-year-old regulations. I mean, this would never have been a thing when the DOT license requirements were written or anything. This would never have worked. What I'm trying to do is just, I'm dealing with what I have to deal with, I guess, is the gist of it for regulations and all that. To elaborate on the dyno machine added to there too, I think that that's what in the original letter from the neighbor, the petition that was signed, that said there was disturbing noise. When I did lease that building from the Gideons back in 2013 while I was moving into the Calgary property where Performance Auto is located, and the dyno is there, but the dyno is noisy. You strap a machine, and I can understand that, so I mean, and I have no intentions of bringing it there, so why not just throw it in there as a stipulation, was my thinking on that, if there's some reservation of that. I guess I'd like to kind of address some of that letter there. A lot of it is the family culture and whatnot, and again, I have kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old. I don't want to do anything to damage that culture, and I've tried to put every restriction in place to ensure that that won't happen, and it straight up won't happen. There is the traffic impact on that. I just can't see. I mean, this is something that I'm looking at probably 5 cars a month total. Like I said, again, on a busy week, this is like 2 cars a week or whatever. Everything would be stored inside. I don't see that having any more impact than Amazon or UPS trucks or any of that stuff. Everybody in my neighborhood has a building for their side hustle and stuff. The only difference is that I'm here today because I have to chase the state license. You know, that's why we all have our buildings, like the Campbells mentioned, being out in the rural area and whatnot. I don't want to damage the family culture or anything. My family is there too, but let me do what I need to do. As for the taxes, I literally just talked to Janet 10 minutes ago because I was here early. Some of you guys saw me. I went down there. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't running my mouth on something that I don't know. She may even be in here. She was going to come up and speak possibly, but she had an interview around the same time. But it will remain a primarily residential address, so that will be taxed as a residential property because the primary purpose of the property will still remain residential. She's read through the restrictions and everything and said that it'll be taxed exactly the same way that it is now. There's no increase to taxes, there's no discount, everything's staying exactly the same. And Janet, like I said, this was literally 10-15 minutes ago that I was down in her office speaking with her just to reconfirm, because I had talked to her. This was my second time meeting with her. I just wanted to shore up some things on that. Really, I just want the security of having my own place with a dealer number and everything too. I mean, that's a big part of it. It's a big difference between owning something and renting it, and I have no intentions whatsoever of changing Performance Auto or anything, but I would like to do some things that are completely on my own and under my own control and all that. Any questions on the restrictions or anything that I can help with?
So, will you just take a general question?
Yeah, I'll take questions.
So, to help your you have a dealership now
Correct.
in a different location, and how does this additional location help your business, if you've already got a primary business?
Well, I guess one minor way that it would help, well, Performance Auto, if you're not familiar with it, I recondition older Japanese cars, whether it be a sports car or economy, anything, but I only work on Japanese made vehicles there. Just kind of niche the way it is and whatnot. And I guess one thing that it would benefit is occasionally, you know, I get somebody that trades in a domestic sports car or a European one or whatever that I could probably find a home for that, but I would rather do that from a separate business name, because once you get a niche, I mean, once you start wandering out of that, you lose that.
So you're not in the cars, you don't sell cars now?
I do sell
So you
cars
have a dealer, you have a license to sell cars now
right with my business partner there.
with your business
And
partner?
then we have 3 full-time employees, and all that is staying the same. This is literally just another thing that I want to do and I want to be able to experiment with.
But independent, that's your own, that's independent, so you need another dealer license.
Right, I'm kind of going off here on a limb, but I kind of want to get into like the Teslas and electric cars, but I need a very low overhead to get into that and experiment with that. And if it supports that I can move out and build another shop or something from there, but I need like a test platform kind of to do that, because there's just too much risk involved in just going out there and doing this stuff from scratch. I can't just go lease a building out on a whim and think, oh, you know, I hope this works.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot easier to fold if it doesn't work when you don't have the overhead and it's just at your house, you know, that's the gist of it, but I still need the Iowa DOT license to be able to do that. One thing I did want to show to you, I'm trying my best to do this the right way, and I just want to show you our neighbors that is within walking distance of everybody that is in my area. He's just curbing these cars. They have license plates that are not to the car. He's reassigning the titles without paying taxes on them. And there's been not one signed complaint that I know of come in on that. I mean, it's kind of a slap in the face that I'm here catching as much slack as I am when this guy's right on the street with a $600,000 house full of junk. But my place will never look like this.
How far away is that from your location?
Less than a quarter mile. Yeah, not even, like a city block away.
I mean, it's literally walking distance from everybody that is on all these lists. And this is Warren County too. Here's what it looks like when it does it right. I know you guys did McDonald's place, looks great, that's what I want. Except no cars outside at all, you know, I'm willing to give that up. I have done everything in my power to put as many regulations on myself in place to make sure that my neighbors know what they're getting. I don't see it any different than any of their side hustles. Any other general questions or anything?
Just thank you for being here and giving us this information, and you did a great job.
Absolutely, thank you.
Appreciate all the time you're taking to do this.
I appreciate you guys listening, thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
Is there anyone else, in the room or online who'd like to speak on this? We still are in public hearing. Just come up, state your name and address, please.
Sure. My name is John Bamer. I live at 5027 R57 Highway. I live just a half mile down the road from Sean. I've been a friend of Sean for a long time. He's worked on my cars. As I drive by the houses, the neighbor, the one that is complaining so much, the one that has a business in their building, shields about, you can't hardly see Sean's property because his building is toward the road and kind of from south as you drive north, you can't see the building. I find Sean's building place very far enough off the road with the privacy fence that it's not visible from the road. I agree the business down the street, which I think may be in the jurisdiction of Norwalk, is not not what we want to see in our area. It's just, it seems kind of trashy. We have other people almost across the road that have a car wash business, and they've got all their trailers and associated with, it's well kept, but extremely bright. You feel like you're at a commercial at the airport or something with all the lighting. Sean's business will be very discreet. It is basically a transfer business, just as if you would do a firearms transfer. You have to have somebody with a license to do that business. I think impeding his prosperity by limiting what his business, I think that's not right. Everybody else around him is doing the same thing. His is going to be discreet. He's not advertising on the street. No one will know. He's going to be contracting with people to find cars and bring them back. Then the sale is done. I feel like this is a short-term, low capital. It's not a nuisance to the neighborhood, and I really hope that you support Sean on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Troy Westrom, I'm Sean's dad. Newly retired, so I'm hoping that if Sean gets this through, I can kind of be the guy that picks up all the loose whatever that he needs to have done, like be a gopher and all that sort of thing. I've lived in Norwalk my whole life. I know Norwalk made a comment on it, but it's you know, a substantial distance out of Norwalk city limits, and you know, he has no city services there. He's on septic, he's on rural water, I believe, and you know, the impact to Norwalk is zero with it. And you know, again, I've went by that house on the corner there that he showed the pictures of, where the cars are all outside, and my folks, in fact, live on that street. But I've just been amazed that that's gone on like it has. And Sean has to go through all these hoops, which he's willing to do. He wants to do it the right way. I don't see why he's penalized and has people, you know, talking about him like the one neighbor, but yet they don't do anything. They don't even file a complaint on that guy. I mean, those are all brand new houses. I just can't believe that anybody doesn't step forward on that. So, you know, that's just, there's a little hypocrisy there. Sean's gone to great lengths to try to figure this all out and conduct business within his building, which is an outstanding building. And the kind of cars he's talking about, you know, he may get into Lamborghinis, Porsches, things like that, high dollar value cars. That's where, you know, he's not going to have dozens of cars there. It's just going to be a real limited amount of cars. And he's done a lot of internet sales. He has, with products from his other business, and you know, has great success with that. He has great video stuff. So when people want to see the cars, he actually can go out, walk around the car, and have the video going, and zoom in on anything. And a lot of these people, they make their decisions without ever physically seeing the car. And you know, he has, I think, another option for shipping from another location. If I understand it right, he can correct me, but you know, it's not like, you know, I was struck by what he said. You know, you're really not going to see anything like, I've got a neighbor across the street from me. They have UPS trucks stopping, Amazon Prime trucks stopping all the time. You're not going to see anything like that there. So anyway, I think it's a good venture. I think it's reasonable, and I would hope that you guys would approve it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. West.
Is it okay if I step forward? Good morning, too, by the way.
Name and address.
Good morning, my name is Kate Baldwin, Catherine Baldwin, and I reside at 4250 R57, and I think Sean has referenced our property. We're just adjacent to the south. Ms. McIntyre, it's a privilege here to visit with you. I've also talked with Mr. DeCook about this, and also Mr. Heater, and I thank you for allowing me to present. And Tracy, it's good to see you too. I've got some materials here. I'm going to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to read some of this. But Tracy, do you want me to give this to you before you pass it out to them? Yeah. First of all, it's not easy for me to step forward here. I'm going to be very frank. I don't want to be in opposition to neighbors. We are in a rural residential neighborhood. We're not business people in this community. We're just moving out there to get more of an acreage and live in a quiet cultural environment. To be honest, we have been very cooperative neighbors as far as us specifically with that property, with the previous property owner. When the building that Mr. Western was going to operate out of, that property owner, Mr. Gideon, approached us. And we bought that property in 2006, and it was vacant property with our intent to build on that. He approached us probably in 2007 when he was going to construct the building that they're going to operate out of and asked if we would sign a variance so that building could be located closer to our property line. And when we're looking at things, it's like, do you want to get along with the neighbor? Do you want to do, is it going to impact us negatively? No, 6 or 8 feet. So I do want you to know, Warren County, and I've been in contact with your staff, Lindsay Bauman, for over a week. I know she's had some personal issues she's been working through, but there was an administrative waiver that was granted to get that actually closer to my property. And I'm going to read through, but it's, I mean, we're not talking distances, we're talking very feet than where this building is located. So I think at this, I'm going to go through, I'm going to read some things. I gave it to you so you can follow along for your consideration and how you consider this, because I know you've got a lot on your table too. Our names are Robert and Catherine Baldwin. My husband is the audience. And I do want to say my appearance at these proceedings has not been that I don't care. I work for the Norwalk School Board, and a lot of your meetings conflict directly with that, and I'm sorry that takes precedence. I've taken personal time to come down here, but because I do want to be able to visit with you face to face and have this conversation. Also, too, my husband has been at the Warren County zoning meetings as well as the Board of Supervisors meetings, but that's why you've not seen me as frequently in the past. Robert and Catherine Baldwin, as I said, we reside at 4250 R57 Highway, and we've owned that property since 2006. Our property is adjacent, as I've already spoken, to Sean Westrom's. He's requesting it be rezoned from Ag 1 to commercial. 15 out of 17 surrounding property owners, that's 88%, have signed a statement, and I hate to use the word petition. They've signed a statement listing reasons why they oppose this rezoning. In addition to the property owners, the city of Norwalk, I know, has also, and I have been in communication with them, have submitted a letter about this rezoning, and it does align with their comprehensive use plan. Rezoning this property would dishonor the current property owner's expectations, create objectionable conditions that will disrupt the harmony of the surrounding community, and devalue, in my belief, all the adjacent residential properties. This area along R57 Highway is a quiet, rural residential community, as you can see from the Warren County GIS map, and I would ask you to turn to the very back, third to the last page you have. And I've got a GIS map there. Do you see it? This one like this?
Yep.
I've circled in green, and it's pretty lame how I've done it, but I've circled the individuals that have signed the statement that are not in favor of this. That's 88% out of 17. Of the ones that this county notified, all but 2 have signed this statement saying that they're not in favor of this rezoning request. You can see it's a very dense residential rural neighborhood. Okay. Introducing any type of business into this area would greatly disrupt the nature of the community. A car dealership coupled with an aircraft repair shop. Now I understand that has been dropped from the application. I haven't seen it legally, but I understand that either by conversation or whatever, that's been dropped as a request, but that was in the original. Would result in vehicle and equipment storage on the property, increased traffic from customers. I would think whoever's gonna come there to look at a car, they're gonna test drive it. I would, if I'm spending $100,000 on a vehicle, in which recently, unfortunately, I did not spend that much, but I test drove it before I bought it. And vendors would supply deliveries, evenings and weekend hours of operation, and business signage, even though it is restricted to the side of the building, all of which lead to material disruptions. I'm going to go on down to the last paragraph there, or second to last. As the city of Norwalk continues to grow in the future, this area, located less than 1/2 mile from the city limits, will continue to see residential growth. Now, we all know Norwalk tends to be growing west right now and north, but you might as well understand. You all know the city of Norwalk is going to continue to grow in its entire circumference around that. I knew when I bought that property that more than likely, sooner or later, I will be annexed into the city of Norwalk. In fact, there's a plat of survey that involves my property and just to the left, just to the south, where the Campbells that signed that petition, We do have, that's in a plat of survey, registered with the county by the city of Norwalk. Additional commercial property in this demographic area would create problems. I'm in that second to last paragraph. As the city and future property owners endeavor to develop that area further as a residential community. We need to protect future growth of this community by honoring current zoning restrictions that align with both the county's, and I say the county's comprehensive land use plan, as well as the city's comprehensive land use plan. As residents and property owners, we respectfully, and I mean that sincerely, respectfully to urge the zoning commission as well as this board to dismiss this matter of rezoning. Now I'm gonna go into rationale as to why, and that's in the second page there. The area along this R57 has become a rural setting, with each property owner residing on his own small acreage. The property owned by Mr. Westrom is in the heart of that area. It's surrounded by residential homeowners on 3 sides. A commercial business in the middle of this area will greatly disturb family culture of this neighborhood. I think we all have intents, but it's hard sometimes to understand how those transfer over time. A retail commercial business will increase traffic on an already busy highway. There's been discussion about possibly approaching you folks about lowering the speed limit in there. It is a very busy with commuter traffic as well as a residential traffic. The speed limit on that's 55 miles an hour, making it difficult for motorists to access the driveways without impeding traffic. Introducing more traffic creates safety concerns and presents more of a disruption to residents. Mr. Western proposes to operate a car sales, and again, I should delete, I guess, aircraft restoration business. Parked cars for sale will be unsightly and stand out in a residential neighborhood. The operation of the car sales and repairs will create a noise disturbance for the neighborhood. During that, and Mr. Westrom spoke to it, during 2013 to 15, Mr. Westrom rented that building on the property to run an auto repair business. That noise level was very disturbing. I did not contact the county. I was not one of the neighbors who complained and said, but was it very disturbing to me? Yes. There was reported in discussion among neighbors that we actually had test driving on R57 while he was operating that for repair purposes. Again, I can't speak to that. I wasn't there, but it was reported that that went on. Others voiced concern to Ms. Gideon, who owned that property. He then discontinued the service repair business at this location and moved to his business, which is the current location, 5102 on Highway 28, which is a more acceptable location for that business. Mr. Westrom currently has an established automotive business, as we already said, less than 2 miles from where he wants to create the second location. He cites, and this is my verbiage and I want to caution, unfavorable conditions, because I've asked him personally, why don't you just operate this out of your current location? And I understand with the partnership he has, that would not be conducive to his partner. Well, I understand if you're in a partnership, usually you give and take and you're flexible about how you want to approach businesses. And so I'm a little puzzled why they can't work out an agreement to operate this additional license at that current location. But again, I can't speak to that. This failure of flexibility, that last sentence, this failure of flexibility, flexible business relationship does not encourage me that cohabitating with the business next door will be favorable. So number 6, due to the nature of this proposed business, there's no limitation on operational hours or days of the week. This could lead, I guess I've already said, to increased traffic and the number of people coming and going from evenings and weekends. Customers coming and going will result in a loss of privacy to all the neighbors and could present safety issues. Number 7, if the county elects to rezone this property, Mr. Westrom can decide to change the nature of the business at will. Now I'm understanding we're putting restrictions and things, but again, once it's C2, it is C2. The next business could become even more objectionable to car sales and repair business. In the future, Mr. Westrom could rent the property, and the restrictions it discusses selling, but there's nothing stopping from renting and continuing to have that C2 zoning, and elect to operate a business without any approval. On January 10th of 2022, the Warren County Zoning Commission deliberated on a request to rezone another property from A1 to C2. I believe that was in southern Warren County, down near Milo. In the minutes of the meeting, Carrie E. Wallinger states, I would caution that restricted rezoning sounds good as a compromise, but they are tough to control and regulate. That was a quote. I ask this board what Warren County authority or official monitors and enforces these restrictions, and what recourse does an adjacent property owner have if the restrictions are not followed? Number 9, 41.11 of the Warren County C2 district regulations state that, thank you here, that C2 districts, general commercial highway service districts, are intended to provide for the commercial and highway service uses required to serve the general needs of the county and the highway traveling public. I guess I question how an internet sales involving high-end cars are going to serve residents of Warren County. I asked this board, number 10, the building that Mr. Westrom will use to operate this car sales business is located 9 feet from our property line. And that's where I encourage you to look then at the second GIS map, and Sean did a good job of showing that, but you can see where the property, it is within 9 feet of our property line, and it is also too within 22 feet of our building and 100 feet of our private drive. In another rezoning request that was heard and approved by the board in November of 2022, members expressed concerns about the distance between the C2 business and neighboring rural residents. I heard this group say that a distance of less than 1 to 2 miles was concerning for the county and adjacent property owners. Number 11, if this property is rezoned to C2 commercial, it will be very difficult for this group, you folks or future folks, to deny a request to modify, expand, or change the nature of that C2 business that would be operated in this property. Number 12, if this property is rezoned C2 commercial, it would be very difficult for the future Warren County Board of Supervisors to deny another residential property owner, current or new, in this area. This area of R57 has several vacant land areas that are ready for future development. Again, as area residents and working with the city of Norwalk, we anticipate this vacant land will be developed into private, single-family residential properties. Number 13, and again, I do not want to seem accusatory, but I do want to remind this board, Iowa State University defines spot zoning as, spot zoning is when a rezoning decision results in a single parcel or small land island of property with restrictions on its different use from those imposed on the surrounding property. Spot zoning can be valid if there is a reasonable basis to treat the spot zone property differently than the surrounding property. For example, a parcel or two designated as a neighborhood commercial in a residential area is perfectly appropriate if it provides retail sales to the residents. However, zoning is not appropriate if it is for the financial benefit of an individual property owner but detrimental to the surrounding area. According to the Iowa courts, the factor of primary importance is whether the rezoned tract has a particular adaptability to the new classification as compared to the surrounding property. Spot zoning for the sole benefit of the landowner and contrary to the comprehensive plan is unreasonable. And again, I cited that off of the Iowa State University website. I ask this board why this is not an example of spot zoning. Number 14, finally, you are duly elected to represent all residents of the county. As elected officials, I trust each of you to define and protect my safety as well as the property rights and values. I ask each of you how the rezoning of this property falls in line with protecting my property rights. Can I be assured that the neighborhood will not be challenged by another rezoning request in the future? And finally, I ask of each of you to guarantee me that your action to approve this rezoning request will not negatively impact the value of my property or the value of other property owners in close proximity to this proposed business. I provided, as I said, this just came off of your website, the GPS showing where the map is located, Iowa State. I've also I did not reduplicate for you the original statement that was signed by individuals, the 15 individuals in that area. I did supply for you though a listing of the individuals that signed that petition. There was a little bit of confusion. Lindsay did assure me that you've all received that petition that was signed.
First packet.
Yeah, great. And then also to Mr. Randy Hatch, a neighbor located at 4150 R57, did not sign, but I understood, he told me he had sent a communication down, and that was noted in minutes in one of your other previous meetings, as well as the city of Norwalk. Again, this is not a fun opportunity for me. I've been surprised it has went as far as it has. I'm gonna be honest. When I look at Norwalk, I've had privilege of being involved in some Polk County discussions about how that county developed, and Warren County is becoming a very close sister to Polk County as we grow. That's great. I heard you lowered your levy. Part of that is because of increased property values, and I understand that. And I have checked too, Sean is correct, well, from what I understand in visiting with officials, and that would be the city of Norwalk. I'm not in contact with the county, but it's not gonna change the way that property is taxed. It's going to continue to be taxed. So I find that a little strange too, that we change a zoning, but yet the taxing does not actually follow that. But that's kind of another story probably for the state of Iowa. But with that, I would ask you to very highly consider this. And again, this is not something we take lightly, and I appreciate your time and hearing my concerns. Thank you.
Mrs. Baldwin, would you take a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. You mentioned early on, I didn't see it in here, I don't recall reading it, something about a variance in 2006 on the construction of the building. Was that your building or was that?
Their building. Their building is located, Mr. Western's building. At that time, he was not the property owner. Mr. John Gideon was the property owner, John and Rhonda Gideon.
Because historically, a building like that would need to be 50 feet?
15.
15,
15 feet?
yeah.
In R1, it's 25 feet.
25 feet in R1?
In R1. 25 feet in R1. Oh, yes. Yeah.
And was that document ever located?
No.
Was that filed in the deed?
When we pulled that file, when I pulled that file last week, it said that John Gideon, all I could find was the file that said he pulled the application. So I talked to Kate on Friday, and I never did come up with an application for a variance. But she says she remembers signing something.
My husband signed
So-
it, yeah.
so-
But you can
so-
come look, it is
Yeah,
located 8
so-
feet off.
Yeah, so that might have been what I told her would have been what they called an administrator approved variance. So, it might not have gone through the Board of Adjustment, it might have been a letter that the zoning office would have signed, that Bob would have signed, and then like her husband would have signed off on that. But I couldn't find a copy of that.
I was just curious if
So-
there was any restrictions within the variance or waiver.
So that would have been probably what that was, if he signed something, that would have been what that was.
Thank you I need to share with you, I cannot find our copy either. Again, but yes, it is definitely located, and we measured it yesterday, and you're welcome to come, but it is, we're not talking a mile, we're talking feet, we're talking a car length from the property line. And it's just, I mean, I'm not gonna say I can understand others, but this is nothing come close to what you guys were considering at another, discussion, earlier on, so. Any other questions?
Good job.
Okay, well, thank you for hearing my, concerns, thank you very much.
Okay, we continue on with our public meeting. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak on this matter?
My name's Todd Shute and I live directly to the north of Sean. Basically, it's short and sweet. I really don't, if I were to sell bicycles out of my building, nobody'd be any the wiser. The only reason why people know that Sean is trying to sell vehicles out of his building is because he has to get a license through the DOT. And for that, he has to commercialize his property. Now, I understand the concerns of our neighbors, but there again, if I were to sell bicycles out of my building and had a ton of traffic coming through there, nobody can do anything about it. I don't see, he's not gonna have vehicles outside. see a whole lot of traffic coming through there, no more than the Amazon or UPS truck. Sean and I are friends, but that doesn't change my mind. If he wasn't my friend, if I didn't know him, I would still be okay with it. So, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Shute.
Can I come back up?
Sure, you may.
I'll just address a couple things again, the petition or signatures or whatever, the 15 out of 18 is clear back in October, and again, I was a little bit blindsided by that. Again, I wanna stress that I don't wanna make my first impression to a lot of the people that I haven't met that were on that mailing list, and say, please help me out and sign this, whatever. I think it's important to remember who all is here. There's been plenty of appearances. If you go back to the original meeting where I was approved at the zoning committee, 3 out of 3, I think you'll see in the minutes that I made very good progress with the neighbors that were there that night when I was approved, if you read those minutes. As for I also want to say I did not lease that place for 2013 to 15. I was there for 9 months while Calgary was building my property. I just had my daughter and we were resituating, coming back to Warren County. So that's where all my family was from, and I had operated a shop on East 14th, and I wanted to come back out this way and do that. What does Warren County have to benefit from this? I mean, I'm 33 and I'd really like to think this is gonna sound crazy, but I'd like to have a new car dealership somewhere in Warren County eventually. That's what I'm chasing after. Help me out, I gotta bear with the rules that we have there to do things right to get me there. And there's a lot of stuff to deal with in the way, I can tell you. I feel like all I do is jump hurdles and put out fires constantly. It's just nonstop. And they said it's less than 2 miles to my shop. Again, let's remember that that is also zoned correctly. We've got Hildreth Garage, we've got Ellis. There's properties everywhere that are running businesses in that area. I mean, I can't think of a more perfect area to do what I'm doing, to be honest. I don't want to be far away from town, and I need to be off of hard pavement for the kind of cars that I'm dealing with. I don't have the luxury of doing like what the Ogdens did. I can't take a Lamborghini off-road and, for 3 miles or whatever. There's just not a whole lot out there, and I gotta keep the overhead low, and it has to be something suiting of that sort, and I have the appropriate storage and everything there. Also, if you look at those pictures, I think you'll notice something that their building is pretty much the same exact distance off of my property line. And there's probably 16, 20 foot in between those two buildings. They're right against each other. We both have a back door out to there or whatever, and that's all fine. So, but I think that their building blocks the majority of where the business would be at. You wouldn't even see anything, because I plan on putting that walk-in door will go on the east side of the building there. So. As far as my partnership, I mean, I guess I didn't even think I could have had him come here. He knows all about this and whatnot. I mean, he knows that I want to do this particular project on my own, and Brian and I are very close partners, very good friends and all that. And again, nothing's going to change at Performance Auto. The bottom line is that I want to be able to have a test platform for some stuff, and it just doesn't fit my niche. I can't do that on an existing thing. It's totally separate. If it doesn't work out there, I mean, there's all kinds of tax stuff that goes along with that. I don't need to sit here and plead that. I think you guys know that. That's really about it, I suppose.
I want to ask you a question. How are some of these cars going to be delivered?
Again, those will all be delivered to Grimes, is kind of the transport hub, because I wouldn't be having them delivered to my house. And I guess if you wanted to exclude that, there would be no semi-truck trailers delivering to my area, I'd be willing to put that in as a restriction as well. Because the cars would be arriving to Grimes, and then I'd just drive them back. So yeah, I don't feel that would be
And if they aren't in working order?
If they aren't in working order, then I have a pickup truck and a trailer that I already have that are tagged in normal tags and all that. So I mean, that's the gist of that. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, guys.
Okay, anyone else from the public? Please come up, state your name and address.
Good morning. I'm Kirk Bedwell, 4146 R57 highway. I guess just to kind of reiterate what Kate said, and then also the feelings that I have, if the residents in this area, if we are, and I forget the exact numbers, Kate, was it 15 out of 17 residents within the allotted area that had to be notified of this are against this, the city of Norwalk is also against it, and if the DOT is requiring you to have a property zone commercial, to me, this tells me that the DOT doesn't want people selling cars out of their houses. And that's kind of the situation that we're looking at right here, is going against what the DOT is trying to prevent. I mean, I'm all for Sean making the best life. I understand making money is what you try to do. I just think there's a lot of things that I guess are against this in the area where he's at that are meant for a true commercial area. Something that has already been zoned commercial, or an area that is proposed to be commercial in the future. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm really open to any other additional restrictions that you guys would feel necessary. Again, like Kirk says, I mean, the license, it's just a one-size-fit-all thing. It's no different than everybody else's side hustles and whatnot that are going on that street. I just have to have that license, and it's nothing new. I mean, there's literally hundreds of the DOT licenses that are attached to a residence, so I mean, that's not an uncommon thing. I mean, there's a good handful of them just in Warren County alone, not just the one everywhere, so there are, yeah, that's it.
Well, how will you handle test drives?
Well, the majority of the cars that I would be dealing in, a lot of them I wouldn't even want a test drive, but yeah, I mean, I guess there would be some test drives, but again, we're talking, this is probably gonna be 5 cars a month is what I would see, somewhere around the, like, I can't see this being more than 50 cars a year. I just can't see that. And again, if it's deemed necessary and proved to be something that is profitable and what, then I want to venture out away from my house at that point. Again, I want to note too that there's sunsetting. If you want to restrict me from having renters, I totally understand that too. So
Yeah. So.
anything I can do to help, I guess. So.
Okay. How would we word that?
I'm sorry.
If we address the renter issue as well as, test driving, it's not test driving, it's the number of cars that you're selling out of your building. I think that is telling, and like you said, if it's going to be profitable, you're not gonna stay there.
Right.
So would you come back to the county and say, I'm no longer gonna be using this building for this?
Yeah, I mean,
What?
I could certainly, I mean, I guess if that license changed to addresses, I would be willing to sunset at that point.
Okay.
I think if you put that dealer's license or to change address, the zoning would be rescinded at that point.
Is there anyone else from the board who'd like to speak? Anyone online, Michaela? Okay, so it looks like just in the room. About last call. Okay, I'll make a motion to end our public hearing. Second.
Second.
Sorry, roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye. Okay, board discussion.
Okay. Well, I think that I'd like to see some additional restrictions, just to protect the neighborhood. I do feel that it isn't quite fair that all of these other businesses are happening and they have no restrictions, and there is not one complaint filed with our zoning, and yet we're complaining about a man who's trying to do it right and not even doing it yet. So that does give me pause. That's my biggest pause right now. This isn't see. And his business is not gonna impede on your safety or the value of your property. And, you know, I would question the neighbors around who are having their business. That seems to be unsightly, and the amount of lights, as well as the, parking of their cars and their equipment, that doesn't seem to be right, whereas his is gonna be restricted just to the building. So, I do feel that, you would not be in here if it wasn't for this archaic law. And I feel it's a real, disservice that you have to involve a governmental body that has no authority over that law or any part of it. But yet we have to be made a partner. And also to address the land use plans for Norwalk as well as, Warren County. Those are guides to help us with our growth, and this is a temporary solution for him. It is not growth in that area and will not maintain its C2 value. So, I would like to, go to a third reading and have these restrictions added appropriately. And then, unfortunately, I know, but I do want these restrictions to be added. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Supervisor. I'm not going to change or deviate from my opinion and position at the last meeting, but I genuinely feel for you, Mr. Westrom. I understand the dilemma. I understand, the neighbor reaction. I've read all of it. And you are in between a rock and a hard place for what you're trying to accomplish, and I think it's very commendable. I like it. I'm sure that I won't get an invite if it passes and you do have a Lamborghini, which I would love to see. But, my take is, I can't get past the spot zoning nature of it. I think that it would involve some mental gymnastics to do so. So I'll call a spade a spade. As for differences between that and the Milo, similarly situated, request, you know, that same notice went out to every, property owner within, what was it, Lindsay, 2 miles, a mile?
500 feet.
500 feet, and there was no opposition. And in this case, I have, a supermajority of the neighbors saying no. I also have Norwalk, which I understand is not determinative upon our decision, but it is within that 2 mile PUD of Norwalk, also on the record saying no. And so my take is, what I think the appropriate response is to, reach out to our state representative, which is Stan Gotzeson in that district. I will probably give Brooke a call as well, and then send the state senator Julian Garrett and say, the DOT license requirement is the hangup, because I agree with you. There's lots of businesses that are in rural residential and in residential cities that don't require the licensure. The reason you're here is because you need the license. You don't want to be here. If you didn't have that license requirement, you could absolutely run that exact business the way that you want to run it, and we'd have no issue whatsoever. And there wouldn't be much that neighbors could say or do about it either. And so I would encourage, and I think the appropriate spot is at the legislature to have them change, that DOT license requirement. I don't think that because they are not, haven't done that yet or haven't been approached to do so, that's not enough of a nudge for me to say, okay, but it's not spot zoning here, or, I'm going to not pay line to the 15 or 17 of the 18 neighbors who were notified that are a no, or Norwalk's position on it. So I'm still going to be a no, on it, but, those are my thoughts. But I think the correct path is, legislative change on the DOT requirement. Otherwise, this issue is going to keep coming before us, and before us, and before us, and we're going to have to clearly take each of them individually. But I can't even tell the public what are our guidelines. I mean, the Milo one keep my position of a not in favor. That's my thoughts.
Can I clarify something?
Sure.
The, correct me if I'm wrong, Lindsay, but the DOT does not require him to rezone to C2. Our ordinance requires him to rezone to C2, so we can sign, this, car sales falls under C2. The DOT doesn't require him to rezone to C2, we do because car sales falls under C2. I just thought that would be important to clarify.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does our ordinance distinguish between retail car sales and internet car
No,
sales?
because our ordinance needs to be rewritten, and back then, internet car sales, when the ordinance was originally written,
Okay, so
internet
that's-
car sales wasn't a thing.
That's really good to know, because I was unaware of that.
I just wanted to
Therein
make
lies-
that clear.
Therein lies.
That's why he has to do this.
Okay, so therein lies a different path without having to rezone the property commercial.
Yeah, and I think we've explained that before, but I don't think you've necessarily,
We didn't catch it.
I don't think,
Make that connection.
yeah, I don't think you connected that. And so, yeah, it's a DOT license, but it's our requirements, but I don't think you've connected that before.
And it's my understanding there's other counties that allow this without any other kind of rezoning, it falls under their current. It's a need to update our ordinance.
Well, we're in the process of that, but
Right.
we also update various ordinances. It looks to me like we have one on March 29. Am I wrong?
A lot of counties will just sign it and not even have them do anything, even if it falls under the commercial, we'll just sign it.
We could not when these come before us, we cannot just sign off without acknowledging it's currently in our ordinance as such. And that's all it is that our ordinance says C2.
I thought it was a requirement from the DOT, but
No.
if that's not the case,
No.
then there's a much easier path to deal with internet car sales.
Yes.
Because what you said earlier, I think it was at the last meeting, resonated with me, like, think about all the people selling Cincy, or someone else mentioned bicycles, or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, I would bet, especially after COVID, I would bet that 20 or plus 30% of folks are doing some sort of a side hustle. If you're not, I mean, maybe you don't need to, but.
And that's the only reason Sean's come before us is because he needs our signature on the dealer's license and we can't do that in good conscience.
Could I maybe add one thing real quick?
Sure.
If you wanted to add a restriction that if zoning changed and it allowed me to maintain a license under a different zoning, I would be willing to rescind it to whatever that zoning would be at that point.
Well, I'm just saying that I'm not supportive of rezoning the commercial. I would be supportive of having the county get together and figure out how we're going to handle internet car sales and table this for the time being.
Right.
That seems to make a lot more sense to me than having to go through each of these, and probably a handful more of these in the future. And rezoning property that's going to be, doesn't make a lot of sense, so. I'm still a no on the rezone, that's what's before us today, but I would be willing to look and spend some time with our zoning department and have a special board meeting.
Yeah, I think it might have been Ogden's I think it was Ogden's where I said, might have mentioned that we've gotta figure out how we're gonna address internet car sales, cause it's gonna keep, started as
It's a thing.
McDonald and Mark on, it's just gonna keep coming, funneling at us with these, and it's in our ordinance, it's requiring us to have these, so we just gotta figure out how to address them. Otherwise, it's like Aaron said, we're just gonna keep having them in front of you guys, and so we just need to figure out where do we want them. So,
Or set parameters around them, or.
yeah, exactly,
Signage, vehicles outside,
yeah,
hours of operation.
test
You can-
drives,
you
that
can-
kind of stuff.
You can pen in all of that stuff to have it seem as though it's,
So do you wanna
not
kind of
impactful.
table it instead of work session regarding it, or?
That would be my preference. I thank you for the 100% applicable. And I don't know how you go about delineating where's the board going to be on this one. I don't know. In this case, no one cared, the neighbors. In this one, everyone cared. And how do you pick, is this going to happen or not? People need certainty in the process. So I would be very in favor of not moving forward with the rezone, tabling it instead of work session, and figure out what our ordinance needs to be like with community involvement from a lot of people. I don't think it's just yourself and a neighbor, but I think that might slow roll it a month or two, but I think that's what probably should happen.
I totally agree that that's what I thought our issue was with the state requirement. We talked about that in the last meeting. I think I left here thinking that was a hang up. I didn't realize it was our own ordinance. So, I mean, with that being said, I think it reframes a lot of this discussion. But I do want to say that I'm really impressed with just the people here today on both sides. You know, everybody is so professional and so articulate, and they're fact-based. And it's really put this board in a really difficult position, because if there's one thing I love, it's a young entrepreneur. You know, I love that concept, but I also love 21 taxpayers that have raised their families here and are concerned about their property values. So I feel like this is a really difficult decision. The proximity of Kate's building to Sean's building is a pretty big concern. I mean, this is kind of a unique situation where there's a lot going on in a little bit of space. And if it was just Sean, I can tell you, I'd give you a license in a heartbeat, because I deem you as somebody that's gonna do everything right. You've done everything right. And I would change the zoning for Sean, but I can't say that I would do that for every individual that wants to have an internet car license or zoning or an ordinance to do that on their property. But I don't think there's any question, based on the personal character references from your neighbors and from the way you conduct yourself, that I don't think Kate would have a problem with you. I know you and Kate have a good relationship, and you've reached out and you're trying to sort this out in a very, very inspiring way. But ultimately, if we're gonna have a work session and we're gonna go to a third reading, I don't have to make a decision. And by goodness, I don't really wanna make a decision right now. That's how awful this is. And I hate to drag this out for our citizens. You know, I hate for Sean to have to sit here and go, where do I stand on my business? And I hate for Kate to sit there and go, what's gonna happen to the property next to mine? And it's kind of incumbent on our board to get some direction on this. And our zoning department's sitting here in lieu of what we're doing. So to drag this out is tough. You know, not to make a decision is tough for me. But it is a tough decision, and I think what we decide here today, you know, if we were to make a decision, that we are setting a precedence. We are saying it doesn't matter what the neighbors think. We are saying petitions don't matter. We love the entrepreneur, we love the professionalism, we love the business, and that's where we're gonna lead on every one of these. And I think it's a big decision, how we use our land, how we plan our businesses. If this is commercial, maybe your neighbor is correct in that maybe Kate's neighbor is correct. And the state doesn't want these businesses ran out of a house. Maybe that's what they're doing. But then again, it's our ordinance that's holding us up, it's not the state. So my mind keeps going in circles on it. When Sean's up here talking, I wanna vote for him. When Kate's up here talking, I wanna vote for Kate. That's just where I'm at. And I wanna vote for Norwalk. They're such an excellent city, well-led, great leadership. What they want is important to me as well. I mean, if we need to make a decision today, I would make one, but I don't want to make a decision today. I'd like to talk about it. I'd like to make sure that the county's making these decisions for the long term, keeping the best interest of the 52,000 people in our county's best interest involved.
Here's my concluding thought on it is, when you pick or are perceived to pick winners in aggrieve someone, either neighbors who don't want it or the person whose request for licensure doesn't happen, you will aggrieve someone, and this board will eventually find themselves in litigation over it. And that's not scary to me, but it's expensive. And I think that you better be able, this board better be able to have some parameters of something backing up their decision. And I think that the way in which I think you provide some cover for yourself and ultimately all taxpayers here, because when we end up in court and it costs money, that's once it comes as the taxpayers, is to have a set of standards that are defined. And so there are variances that happen. There are things that we make an exception to, but that's the exception and not the rule. And so it's my preference, and I'll make a motion to table, to also then set a date for the ordinance, because I think that is the fix. It is to fix the issue of internet car sales, which were not contemplated pre-internet. I don't know how that shakes out. I don't know what sort of restrictions the county places on that. I think we've got quite a bit of good facts here from some of the restrictions that at least some proposed internet car dealerships would think are workable. I mean, I don't think anyone wants to have 18 cars sitting outside of their neighbors, or for sale signs or signage, but I think that is the fix. And I apologize for not understanding that that the hang-up wasn't at a requirement from the state to have its own commercial, but in reality, it looks as though it's our ordinance that's the hang-up. So I think the prudent thing to do is to work on the ordinance so that we have a standard that we can rely upon, so that one, a lot of these won't come before us, and two, people can have some buy-in, and we can get an ordinance that makes sense and go from there. But if you don't have that standard, then what will happen is we may be like this applicant under these facts, or maybe we don't. I wasn't supportive of it because of the neighbors in Norwalk. It's a spot zoning argument that I think makes sense, but eventually the board's going to get sideways with the wrong person, and then we're gonna have to actually explain, why'd you do this, but not in X, Y, Z matters, why'd you choose that? And that's not an envious position, so I think you clean up the ordinance. So I'm gonna make a motion to table our second hearing for rezoning of it, and I would be willing to set a hearing date after March 13 or 15, so that we can go through. Lindsay, I'd like to look at a number of other counties' ordinances, because I'm sure other counties have already tackled this as sort of a starting point for how they deal with internet car sales. If we can get some of those materials together in the next couple of weeks. I'm not looking to drag this on forever for you. I understand what you want to do.
Why don't you do two separate motions? If you're gonna do a motion to set a hearing
Okay.
for something else,
Fine.
why don't you do a motion on
Sure.
tabling this matter alone?
I'll make a motion to table, the Western rezone.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
McIntyre?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
DeCook?
Aye. Lindsay, what do you think for timing? I know you're under the weather right now, so. End of March, middle March, anytime after March, between March 15 and March 30, I'd like to have at least a preliminary meeting on internet car sales ordinance.
Yeah, we'll send the info out to Rosa when we get back to the office. And why don't we set a work session for next Tuesday or sometime if you want.
Let's set a work session after I'm gone for a bit.
Oh, okay.
So why don't we set a work session for March 14, 15?
Okay.
15 we have that's our evening meeting, isn't it?
Yes.
Would the board be willing to come in, or able to come in afternoon of the 15th or morning of the 15th? Yep.
Cause I'm just thinking if you set a work session at Craig around there, then we can put it in the zoning commission in a meeting early April, and then you guys could hear that in April as well, and then we could then have their meeting.
We
You know,
need-
put this back on the agenda.
We need to tackle it at some point, and that's fine, so why don't we, we'll work on it, we'll work on setting a work session then
Okay.
on March 15th for
Okay.
reviewing the ordinance. And I don't know where that'll shake out, but regardless, this board needs to, 100% look at that, so. Okay. We don't need to set a motion or resolution for that, we can set a work session, whatever I wanna call them, so.
Did you call for the question on your motion to table?
Yes.
Okay.
We did, we voted on it.
Okay.
Passed. Okay. Number 7, approve offer to purchase permanent easement for project number L-MP 2021-91, parens 3.
So this is permanent easement for the purpose of right-of-way, for a bridge replacement project, that's scheduled to take place, fairly soon. It's on 60th north of Wyoming, the southwest corner of the county. We'll be replacing the bridge with 2 or twin 84-inch pipes, and to be able to do that and form ditches, we need additional right-of-way. So it's nice to get rid of guardrails and bridge rails and that sort of thing, but it's about 0.13 acres on each side. It's the same landowner, and the total cost for that purchase would be $2,600.
It's your recommendation to do it?
Yes, we always, start at $0 and ask if they wanna donate. I think that insults them sometimes, but, I have to ask that question. We don't just start at, a high number when we're negotiating tax dollars. It's not what we're here to do.
How do we arrive at their figure?
We eventually give an even $10,000 an acre on all our projects, so there's no argument. It's fairly substantial, so if we were to go to condemnation on a project, which we never wanna do, it'd be, less than that, but, when we're doing easements, all the conferences and work, things I attend, they recommend you kind of lean on a little bit of the higher end, even $100 for a temporary easement. So there's just no argument, and projects can move forward.
Well, you at least have consideration if it gets hairy. Okay.
And then we're also treating everyone the same at the end of the day. We're not picking the winners and losers, so.
Treating everyone the same is a good thing, so
So.
I like it. Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the permanent easement.
Second. Roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye. Motion's approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Okay, number 8 is consider approval of ARPA funded projects.
Good morning. I have a selection of ARPA-funded projects for you to consider today by resolution. I'm gonna start, and I'm going to read the resolutions for you, make it move along a little faster maybe. Approving use of ARPA funds for Warren County Environmental Health, purchase of CHAMP software and GIS Schneider / assessor fee. Be it resolved that the Warren County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the use of ARPA funds in the amount of $24,800 for environmental health for purchase of CHAMP software and GIS Schneider / assessor fee.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye.
The second resolution, approving use of ARPA funds for Warren County Libraries, participation in Iowa Libraries Adventure Pass. Be it resolved that the Warren County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the use of ARPA funds in the amount of $6,500 to fund the Iowa Libraries Adventure Pass program at the 6 public libraries in Warren County.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye.
The next resolution, approving use of ARPA funds for Warren County IT VM virtualization host. Be it resolved, the Warren County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the use of ARPA funds in the amount of $29,650 for IT for new VM virtualization host.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye.
The next resolution, approving use of ARPA funds for Warren County IT ERP system upgrade. Be it resolved that the Warren County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the use of ARPA funds in the amount of $46,900 for IT upgrade of ERP system.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye.
The next resolution, approving use of ARPA funds for Warren County IT upgrade of antivirus, anti-malware. Be it resolved that the Warren County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the use of ARPA funds in the amount of $63,000 for IT upgrade of antivirus, anti-malware.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye.
The next resolution, approving use of ARPA funds for Warren County offices purchase of LevRack mobile shelving units for secure storage. Be it resolved that Warren County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the use of ARPA funds up to $68,000 for purchase of LevRack mobile shelving units for secure storage. This will be used throughout many offices within the county.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye.
The next resolution, approving use of ARPA funds for Warren County Land Use Plan and Zoning Ordinance. Be it resolved that Warren County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the use of ARPA funds up to $300,000 for updating the Warren County Land Use Plan and Zoning Ordinance.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye.
The next one, approving use of ARPA funds for Warren County Treasurer Qmatic user license fee. Be it resolved that the Warren County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the use of ARPA funds in the amount of $502.68 for Qmatic user license fee.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye.
The next resolution, approving use of ARPA funds for Warren County Conservation Board and Net Nature Center Water Conservation Project. Be it resolved that the Warren County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the use of additional ARPA funds in the amount of $24,853 to create a water conservation project at the Net Nature Center managed by the Warren County Conservation Board. I would strike the word additional from that resolution. This is the only request for this. I apologize for that. Would you like me to read it again?
Yes.
Okay. Be it resolved that the Warren County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the use of ARPA funds in the amount of $24,853 to create a water conservation project at the Annette Nature Center managed by the Warren County Conservation Board.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye.
The next one, approving use of ARPA funds for Warren County Conservation Board Zoe L. Annette Woods Limestone Steps Project. Be it resolved that the Warren County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the use of ARPA funds in the amount of $12,200 to create limestone steps along a trail at Zoel Annette Woods, managed by the Warren County Conservation Board.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
And the very last one for this time, approving use of ARPA funds for Warren County Justice Center sump pump, window blinds, and epoxy flooring. Be it resolved that the Warren County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the use of ARPA funds in the amount of $100,000 for purchase of a sump pump, blinds for windows, and epoxy flooring in jail cells in the Warren County Justice Center.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great job, Don. Okay, number 9, receive and file report from Veterans Affairs. Do you have a motion to receive and file?
Make a motion to receive and file the report from Veterans Affairs.
Second. Discussion, roll call please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye. Number 10, supervisors report. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first because I'll be quick. I just had multiple Justice Center meetings and a couple constituent meetings and then some internal meetings with zoning and Board of Supervisor staff. A busy 2 weeks.
Thank you. President?
Okay. virtually attended the Warren County Hazard Mitigation Plan meeting. It was the final for getting the reports in. Also, Aging Resources Board of Directors meeting, attended the Greenfield Plaza Community Association meeting. We had 2 productive Board of Supervisor work sessions. Attended virtually the Warren County Joint 911 Service Board closed session with the board, and attended the Iowa Public Health Leadership Year 3 session. And I'll go ahead. Meetings with zoning and several constituents by email, in person, and on phone.
Thank you very much. Mine I'll stay brief as well. Attended a HERDA meeting. Really excited about a new bus route in Norwalk. They're going in the right direction. The budget actually looks tremendously better than it did 2.5 years ago. So well done, HERDA. Had special meetings. Had a productive ARPA meeting recently. One of them I think was sort of important in that we sort of laid out some parameters for upcoming decisions on economic development as well as community applications, and as far as setting some aside for next year as well. So I think that's sort of good is we want to have a methodology, if you will, to how you're allocating resources, but I'm overall very pleased with how that's going. Let's see. Budget's pretty much wrapped up at this point. Looking forward to getting that finalized. The board can go down, but can't go up at this point. So that's good. Just letting the public know that that we are working towards getting a referendum on the ballot, potentially 2 referendums on the ballot regarding consideration of the board going from 3 to 5, as well as a 4 corners bond for roads for the public's consideration. And so we've got some time there that those are potentially moving, and you might have an opportunity to vote on those issues. Next up, I'll make a note that for people that are seeking office, especially at the county level, deadline is March 7th through March 25 to have nominating paperwork submitted to the auditor. And so that's a great opportunity if you would like to serve, run for an election. That's sort of the first hurdle, is you gotta have your paperwork submitted between those dates to get out here. Lastly, I'll just mention that the weather is getting nicer. When and if we get some rain or some precip, we are sort of moving into that March, April zone where some of our secondary roads are maybe I need a little more patience. But I am very pleased with the operations. I think that we've got some ability to deliver rock much quicker than we did historically. And so I just urge people to be patient and continue to hope for some dry weather, I suspect. But we will be in better shape than we were in years past. But that 90-day window is quickly coming upon us, so I'm sure we'll hear. That's all I have. Public input. Anyone from the public would like to speak? Comments limited to 3 minutes. Nothing on today's agenda. Okay. Our next meeting will be March 15, 2022 at 6 p.m. That is an evening meeting. Those are held for your benefit. Those are held for folks that maybe can't make a 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock meeting on a Tuesday morning. We'll hold one at 6 p.m. And so that's your opportunity. If you'd like to come in person to address the board, it's a great opportunity to do so. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Roll call, please.
McIntyre?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
DeCook?
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you all for your time.